Thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Buff. You guys been a supporter, and we actually go way back. It's so funny to see Julie. We go way back when in my youth and government days. The title that I'm going to talk about is "Keep Pressing." Oh gosh, let me stop it. It's called "Keep Pressing." And I understand the different aspects of it, so I apologize if it offends anyone. But for those of you that are familiar with biblical texts, in the book of Acts, chapter 28 and verse 3, Paul was getting some sticks and a poisonous viper snake bit him, and he just shook the snake off. And people were watching to see, gosh, this man just got bit by a snake and he should be dead, and he wasn't dead. He just kept going. And that's where I say we have to keep pressing. We must keep pressing for equality for our Black brothers and sisters in our LGBT community. When acts of hatred and violence are done, we must speak out and stand up. And we must remember that we are stronger together. We did that with George Floyd. And, it's sad it took white America to wake up, and you had to be killed on video recording so white America could see what was going on. And it's even sadder that it had to be videotaped for him to get justice. Nevertheless, we still must keep pressing and we must keep pushing. Um, we must keep pushing and demonstrating um, no matter what happens. We know locally that African Americans in Benton Harbor, especially in Benton Harbor, have experienced a high level of racism. We've experienced redlining. We've seen the system work with laws that create injustice and acts against our African American brothers and sisters or our LGBT community. Um, that's why my organization, Neighbors Organizing Against Racism, we have taken the stance of educating and creating a dialogue. Just this year alone, it's kind of like, gosh, it's May, but for the past 4 months, we've had community book reads, The Other Side of the River. Even with that book, I made some Caucasian people, white people mad about the book because they didn't see a lot of Black people reading that book. I think we only had two or three. And then when you look at it, Black people didn't create racism. But even if you read the book, The Other Side of the River, we don't have to read the book. We live the other side of the river. Just yesterday, my heart goes out to that family. A Black single mother have lost two kids. She has three boys. She's lost two of them a year apart due to gun violence. So we don't have to read The Other Side of the River. We live it. But we were able to bring Alex Kosowitz in to that discussion, and it was amazing to see how some of our participants, at first they said they think he was killed, and then after that, they said different. It was amazing to see their opinion. We've had the infamous Jane Elliott, and if those of you that were on with Jane Elliott, hi cousins. Jane Elliott is a firehouse. She tells it how it is. Um, I think that woke people up. It made people understand that white people come from Africa. Um, there's no white, there's no Black. You are just afraid of brown. And it was amazing that we had a white woman to come in and educate our people. She explained that those of you that are in the Christian faith, you believe that white Jesus and that picture that you see is not the white Jesus you are really worshiping. He's a he's a dark skinned Ethiopian. And it was amazing to see. Um, we've started our weekly Wine Wednesday discussions where talk about race. We talk about white saviorism. We talk about those hardcore situations that you would feel uncomfortable with, but we bring them to the forefront. It's small, but we Facebook Live and we talk about that. We talk about, gentrification. That's one of the biggest issues Benton Harbor is fearful of is gentrification. We allow white people to explain how they feel, and we allow Black people to explain what they see. And we've learned more. We don't always agree, but it's always a learning environment. Um, I just want to remind you that we must keep pushing. After George Floyd protest and everything, everybody died down and everybody went back to normal. But just along in Berrien County, I think I got an email from the race relations. 40% of the people that are in jail are African Americans. And Benton Harbor versus St. Joe, or you can even put it in Stevensville or Lincoln Township, people in Benton Harbor die at a quicker rate than the people across the bridge. Um, if we want to really address this, we have to continue to agitate, demonstrate, and create that dialogue. We have to keep pushing and keep pressing. Even with the Berrien County Jail, this coming month, well, next month, I can't believe it's June, we'll be rolling out our Berrien County Bail Fund, and we're going to be having a town hall with the public defender, the head of the public defender's office. It just doesn't affect Black people or African Americans, or it affects all people. Just like 2 years ago, I had a friend that was in jail. His bond was $300. He could not afford that. And he stayed in jail for 30 days. He lost a family member, couldn't even go to the family reunion. We know we have people that can't afford bail, but we also have people that can't even afford tether fines. By implementing this Berrien County Bail Fund, we will be able to provide assistance and help to them. Um, and it's not, you'd be surprised about it. So that's one thing where we're going to keep pushing until we lower the incarceration rate and look at providing resources, such as, are we locking people up because they have mental health or their substance abuse? Or should we be able to provide resources and say, maybe you need to go to Sacred Heart Recovery Center in Berrien Springs, a detox, or maybe you need help. Maybe you need to be with the Riverwood or a counselor. We'll be able to provide that avenue. That's what neighbors do. We look out for each other, right? Um, we also will be introducing this summer the Berrien County Racial Equity Pledge, which will allow citizens and businesses to sign up on making sure we have an equitable community. This will be a county solution across the board. Once we look at the graduation rate, just look at the graduation rate in 2017, 700 people graduated in Berrien County. Out of that 700, only 200 of them were people of color. And if you really want to look at that math, most of those people of color were from Andrews University. So we have to look at how do we make sure that we are getting our students equipped from Benton Harbor to start college and finish college. What are some of those barriers and how do we do it? Let's look, it's amazing that the city of Benton Harbor will finally have a grocery store downtown, but that shouldn't be the only place. Let's look at the food deserts and why. Let's look at the water issue that we're having in Benton Harbor. What affects Benton Harbor can affect St. Joe. It's often when I talk to a St. Joe city commissioner, she says the prices of rent are raising in Benton Harbor, in St. Joe, and my constituents can barely afford to live in St. Joe. And I was just telling her, I understand. Just yesterday I was looking at a place and they wanted 1,300 a month, and the average Benton Harbor cannot. It's going to take us as collective citizens, Black, white, St. Joe, Benton Harbor, Coloma, and wherever, to stand up and fight against these policies that can have a negative effect on us. It's also a daunting task because in order to have a thriving community, you need a strong tax base. So I understand, but I also understand there's always a solution to provide. Um, Neighbors organizing against racism, it's been rough. I would be naive to tell you it's been easy. It's been rough. When we first started, everybody was in the hoopla with George Floyd. Then we had some people on our board that had to resign. It became for show, but we're still pushing. And that's what I wanted to remind you. No matter what, you'll see me in Stevensville, you'll see us in Coloma, you'll see us in Benton Harbor, Waterville, St. Joe, wherever we need to go. We will can make people realize Black lives in Berrien County do matter. We will protest if we have to protest for equitable school funding for communities such as Benton Harbor, where we raise property taxes for education. We got to get rid of that. It's not working, as you can see. We will protest. We will go to Pauline Winslow's office. We will go to Kim Lasada's office. We would do whatever is necessary to make them feel uncomfortable and make them respond. Did you know that our own state representatives still haven't even said the words Black Lives Matter? And two of the biggest communities in their district is Benton Harbor and Benton Township. So we have to keep pushing, be persistent, and contend to the faith, contend to what we are set out to be. The road will not be easy. And I understand it's a daunting task, but keep pushing. And that's it for me.